Hello, everyone. This is Jake, your resident content cowboy here. Yeehaw. Boy, that microphone's hot. It's a hot little microphone. I hope that's not too loud for you. And I am here with a Pokemon Unite tier list. Now, Pokemon Unite is not out, but I played a considerable amount of the beta, and I watched a lot of videos from other creators, seeing what their opinions were. There are some things I differ on, but this is a tier list based on some of the time I've spent with it and based on the fact that, look, we don't exactly know what any of this is going to be. So a lot of this is pure speculation and just experience playing MOBAs in general and seeing what happens here. But of course, the meta and what is useful and what becomes popular is going to evolve so fast once that game comes out. I will also say, just before I start, I feel like I'm giving a lot of like little warnings up top, but just something to think about. Let's say we're talking about a Pokemon that I think is on a lower tier than other Pokemon. That doesn't mean that you can't be one of the best players in the world with that Pokemon. For instance, one Pokemon that I think feels underpowered right now, and we'll see if that changes based on items or how people start to play them, or if the creators have tweaked some things since the beta, we really don't know. But one Pokemon who seems a little underpowered right now compared to some others is Venusaur. So I'll start talking about Venusaur, and I'll start talking about why I would put Venusaur in a C tier, kind of what that means if you're new to tiers in general and or games like this, and why if you want to play Venusaur, that might not matter at all. So when playing Venusaur, he needed a lot of range. He feels like a long range sniper type character, more than pretty much anyone else in the game. I didn't feel like he could zone people out as well as some other Pokemon, and in general, I felt the most underwhelmed playing with Venusaur. It doesn't mean that this is a bad Pokemon, and it doesn't mean, again, if you're a great Venusaur player, you're going to destroy someone with an S-tier Pokemon who doesn't play them as well. Or if you're synergizing really well with your team, you're going to be such a useful Venusaur. Now, something, again, we also don't know. We don't know how items are fully going to affect this, because everything was just... we got a small window of time to play. A lot of it was in Japanese, which some people were translating. There are good sites that have a breakdown of all the items and things like that. But we only know what the meta is for a little chunk of this game. However, from my personal experience and from what I've noticed, the experience of a lot of people who played this game, Venusaur is just a little underwhelming compared to others. Doesn't mean you can't play Venusaur. You unlock Venusaur very early in the game, so I think a lot of people are going to give this Pokemon a shot. But I felt pretty underwhelmed by playing this Pokemon. And also, let me say, I do feel like this game had a relatively decent level of balance to start off with. There didn't seem to be anyone who was so overwhelmingly powerful that you had to have them in a match or you would lose, and there didn't seem to be anyone that if you had them on your team you were totally screwed and you couldn't do anything about it. This doesn't feel like a game with crazy imbalance issues, which is really, really good. So even though I'm saying this Pokemon is C tier, it doesn't mean it can't be part of a really strong winning team. In fact, when I played, a couple times I played with Bulbasaur, I think I did win. So again, all this is going to evolve very fast. So let me talk about another Pokemon that a lot of people think is S tier, and I think it does kind of make sense. Someone like Absol. Absol is a speedster type Pokemon, and the thing about Absol, they say this is an expert Pokemon. It's for people who are experts, but I find Absol to be very simple to play as long as you understand how to jungle. And I'll be talking more about things like that as the game comes out. I'll make a jungling guide and give people an idea of what that looks like. That's focusing on the center area of Pokemon, taking them out, getting the buffs that you get in there, and then moving to one of the lanes to support your team and do what's called a gank, where you kind of come out of the jungle as a surprise. Hopefully the opponent has extended themselves a little too much and you can get a kill there and then your team can score. Absol, I actually didn't spend a ton of time with Absol because I felt like Absol was just pretty basic. And, you know, we're playing a game where so many of these people, you probably have a special place in your heart for them. For instance, I love Snorlax as a Pokemon. I think Snorlax is so cool. I really, really like Greninja as a Pokemon. So I spent more time with those Pokemon than I did some others. Also, I love water types. So Kramer Ant, I was really excited about Kramer Ant. Anyway, I didn't spend as much time as I would like with Absol, but the little time I spent with Absol made me think this Pokemon is brutally strong, a great jungler, and a great ganker. The critical hit ability, how it combos with items, again, it's still all kind of to be seen if this Pokemon drops all the way down and some other, you know, all-rounders or speedsters are way better. You know, with Zeraora being announced, does it hurt Absol, or does Absol still really brutal? So I think Absol felt like an S-tier Pokemon, and I think Absol is going to be the kind of Pokemon that a lot of people can pick up and do very well with. Venusaur, on the other hand, I think is going to take a lot of work to get good with Venusaur. But when you're good with Venusaur and you can get those like long-range snipes and stuff like that, I think people good with Venusaur are going to be a surprise. People good with Absol, not going to be that much of a surprise. I think Absol is going to be easy to be good with. And maybe that's more of the vibe of this tier list is who's going to be easy to pick up and play. But in general, these are just my overall thoughts on where these Pokemon land. Let's talk about someone like Alolan Ninetales. I love that they put in a Pokemon like this, by the way. I do love ice types. What is it with me in ice and water? Apparently, I just need some ice water. Okay. What is it about ice and water types that I like so much? So, where do I put this? This Pokemon is either B or A tier. I could see the argument for either. I don't think it's down at C tier. It's definitely easier to use than Venusaur. It is a brutal laning attacker Pokemon. The attacker Pokemon feel mostly like what you would get from like a mage kind of character in a League of Legends, usually someone who plays the middle lane or something like that. They're really good at laning. They're really good at zoning their opponents out. So what I mean by that is you've got these neutral creeps that you're trying to take so you can get more experience, you can get more of those little Pokeballs of points so that you can score, and you're trying to keep your opponent away from them and let your team get them and get more and more powerful because of that. So you'll have a 2-level advantage against the people you're running into, and you can more easily defeat them. And with its frosty powers, I don't know why I said it like that, but with its frosty little powers, I felt like it was very easy to stay away from the enemies and kind of like push them further away from the objectives. The only problem with a Pokemon like this and a lot of the attackers is when you get dived on, when 2 or 3 guys come out, you're absolutely done for. You're just, it's over. You're in trouble. So I'm going to put Alolan Ninetales as an A tier Pokemon. Let's talk about Charizard. Charizard is an all-rounder, and Charizard has 2 distinct playstyles. You can kind of build them multiple ways. Every Pokemon you can kind of build multiple ways with its moveset, and of course items are going to change that a lot. But I found the issue with Charizard is he was always good. Never great. That's what I felt like when I was playing Charizard. Again, anyone can be the best Pokemon in the round. But when I was playing Charizard, I always just felt like there was someone else I'd probably rather be for the moment. As I said in another video, it's kind of a jack of all trades, master of none. I think Charizard's very good, but I don't think it ever gets past being very good. So I would put Charizard here inside the B tier. That's where I think Charizard lands. So now we can see this is just a little array of S through C tier. We've got a Pokemon that I think a lot of people are going to be good with very little time. We have a Pokemon that's actually going to be tough to be good with, but once you are, is extremely good. We have a very decent Pokemon to pick up, but doesn't feel like it really crushes anything. And then we have a Pokemon that I think you're going to need to spend a lot of time with to be competent. But perhaps once you do, that Venusaur could be really, really powerful. Let's talk about someone tricky here. Let's talk about Mr. Mime. I'm not really sure where to put Mr. Mime because I think I only got one match with Mr. Mime during the beta. The supports, I mainly played as a defender support. I played a lot of Wigglytuff, a lot of Snorlax, Eldegoss. I didn't play a ton of Mr. Mime. So Mr. Mime feels like the kind of person that once you know how to play Mr. Mime, and most likely when you are put together with a strong team and you have some strategies, you can use Mr. Mime so much more effectively than just a Pokemon like Absol, for instance. Absol feels like you can play Absol in solo queue and do really well. Mr. Mime feels like you're going to want to know who your team is, what you're doing, because if people don't understand how to take advantage of the things you're doing on the battlefield, I feel like Mr. Mime can be a little underwhelming. So in that sense, I haven't spent enough time with it, but I'm going to put Mr. Mime as a C-tier Pokemon. It's very situational that you would pick up Mr. Mime and do well with it, and I think unlike a couple of the next Pokemon I'll talk about, I think Mr. Mime just doesn't play well unless you are able to have people who understand how you're helping them. I hope that makes sense. Let me talk about another Pokemon that I think is higher. Eldegoss, I feel like, is a lot easier to play. And basically, you just hang out with someone the whole time. You're a healer. You just make sure your team stays alive, that your team does well in the lane. You keep people alive. You keep them alive during team fights. I think it's easier to set things up with Eldegoss. Again, maybe I didn't spend enough time with Mr. Mime to really make the assumption that it is C tier, but that's just my opinion from the small amount of time I played with it. I think Eldegoss lands in the A tier. It's almost unkillable if you play Eldegoss right. But, of course, a lot of people aren't going to be targeting you from time to time because they're going to be trying to pick off people like Alolan Ninetales, Pikachu, Greninja, some of the squishier people they're going to try to pick off. And they might leave till later. Even though you do keep your team alive, it's very possible that they'll want to collapse all their damage onto one of the attackers and get them out of the battle because you alone aren't going to do much of anything at all. However, again, I do think you're easier to pick up and play than someone like Mr. Mime and more simply valuable to a team, whether it's solo queue or a team put together. I bet it kind of switches a little. So I bet if you're running a well-oiled machine, people like Mr. Mime might be a bit better. But if you're queuing up solo more often or just running with one or two friends, I think Eldegoss is an easier choice. And you're going to stay alive for a long, long time. Let's talk about someone like Snorlax. Snorlax is interesting. Snorlax is a defender. I'm not sure if it'd be B tier. I don't think it's C tier. He's just such a competent, basic tank. You know what you're getting with Snorlax. He's trying to push people around the battlefield a little bit. He wants to soak up a lot of the damage. He has moves that bring a lot of his health back. He's just this big, unkillable guy who you use to distract the enemy opponents, to soak up damage, hopefully from their ults and abilities so that the rest of your team can do what they need to do in the fight. Basically, you want that Snorlax out there and your team kind of around it so that your Snorlax can start a big engagement or something like that or take a brunt of the damage, and then the rest of your team is alive and well to do all of the damage you need done. Of course, again, you can build Pokemon in many different ways. I know there's going to be a build where, his abilities are really strong and you're trying to kill people with them. But in general, you would probably play Snorlax as a much, much tankier character. That classic sort of tank defender role he fills very, very well. And I feel like he settles, for the early game, he could be as high as A tier sometimes, but I feel like he reminds me of Charizard, where he's not bad, but I think there are better options on the table than Snorlax, so he lands in B tier for me. Let's continue talking about some of the support defender types. Let's talk about Crustal. I don't know if this is an S tier Pokemon. I think part of this Pokemon feels broken. And it's that it's a tank that is fast and hits like a truck. But then there are other times where I think, well, I don't feel like I control the battlefield as well as I would like with Crustal. So part of me thinks Crustal is S tier. And I think when this game first starts, you're going to load into matches and you're going to be shocked that you're getting killed by a Crustal. And it's just dominating a whole match because its basic attack combination it's brutally strong. I was so confused when I ran into a really strong one. And then I played Crustal and I thought, oh, wow, this Pokemon's actually so legit. So I think early on in games, it's going to feel like S tier, but probably hovers around A tier. Once everything's, figured out, who knows, it could drop all the way down to a bottom tier Pokemon. But early on, I think this is just going to wreck tons of people. Just wreck them. Let's talk about another Pokemon like Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff, I'm thinking it probably hangs out in the A tier. To me, it feels a little more disruptive than someone like Slowbro. Excuse me, someone like Snorlax. It feels a little more disruptive than Snorlax. Snorlax just feels more basic, more competent. Maybe that's why it's a B tier. B, it's just a basic ass dude. Wigglytuff feels, again, as a tank or support role, what do they call them in this? Let me just pull it up so I can make sure that I'm saying this all correctly. Okay, yes. As a supporter role, I feel like this Pokemon, in some ways, to me, feels a lot more like a defender, but you are using your Sing abilities and your CCs and your stun to help control the battlefield. I almost feel like you could drop a Snorlax from a match and put in someone like this. I'm not saying that necessarily you have to do that, or that that's going to be the best option, but I just felt like this Pokemon was a little more useful than someone like Snorlax in that defender role. Let's talk about another defender. I don't know where to put Slowbro. I was playing with Slowbro. I need more time with Slowbro. Right now, I know a lot of people think Slowbro's pretty darn good, and I've seen some really good plays with Slowbro. I feel like it's going to be much better when it mixed with a team you're playing with often than solo queuing a Slowbro, especially if you use that move that, locks people in place. If people don't take advantage of these moments, you're in a lot of trouble. So right now, I'm just going to leave Slowbro in the B tier, and I'll say that I need to spend more time with this Pokemon before I get more of a feel on where I would put them inside the tier list. Let's talk about someone like this. Let's talk about Pikachu. Pikachu is A tier or S tier. I think it's A tier. It's pretty basic. When it first starts, people good with Pikachu are just going to rock things. They really are. It's simple. Pikachu is simple, but so effective. And it feels like it's easy to land all the attacks with Pikachu. It's incredibly strong. So maybe early on, I don't know. You know what? Early on, I'm going to say S tier. This is going to change. This is all going to change. And you could be arguing with me like, no, it's clearly A tier, Jake. You're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. But I just feel like it's going to crush early. The only thing you have to worry about, just kind of similar with a lot of the attackers, is your health is so low, or whatever they call it in this game. Your endurance is so low. So it's easy to get knocked out as Pikachu, but it's so easy to hit with all of Pikachu's attacks, and it just feels like whenever you're in Pikachu's zone of influence, you are in trouble. So I'm going to say Pikachu is, right now, I think Pikachu is kind of an S tier Pokemon. Let's talk about a Pokemon that is widely regarded as S tier, but I didn't absolutely love, which is Talonflame. I think Talonflame, the thing about speedsters is mobility is such an important thing in this game. So I understand why you would put Talonflame so high. The thought process is you need to score, you need to get around the map, you need to get to all of these creep Pokemon, all these neutral Pokemon that you can kill and gain experience for. Talonflame has the highest mobility in the game, so Talonflame lets you do that very, very well. When I was playing Talonflame, I thought Talonflame was good, really competent, and I don't know. I just felt like other Pokemon were simpler to do the role with, but I bet high-level play, Talonflame is going to be a pick often. Often, I think this Pokemon will be picked because no one has better mobility than Talonflame. And getting around the map, finding times to score, times to gank, I think is going to be extremely important. So, me personally, I felt like it was, for me, A tier, but I understand why people think this is an S tier Pokemon, and I'd probably have to agree with them. But a lot of this list, of course, is going to be colored by what I think as well. Speaking of someone I need more time with, but I was underwhelmed with in comparison, was Gengar. Gengar feels like playing Boo when you're playing Mario Tennis or something like that. I feel like Gengar's trickier than people like Absol, Talonflame, and perhaps just the skill ceiling is way higher, meaning, you need to play more and more and more with this Pokemon to get really good. Right now, I just felt underwhelmed by Gengar. That was another one where I just felt, I don't know, there are just people I would pick instead of Gengar, and perhaps when the game comes out, there will be some balance changes, but right now I just felt like, why would you pick Gengar when you could pick Talonflame or Absol or even some of the all-rounders, which we haven't really gotten to many of the all-rounders yet. Let's talk about one of my favorites from the beta, Kramer Ant. I can't say this is an S tier Pokemon, but okay, maybe it's A tier. But here's the thing, Kramer Ant, it felt like the squishiest, you need to land your attacks perfectly mage type character, but when you did, it felt like he controlled the battlefield so well. He's one of those Pokemon that's going to stay in lane and hopefully be there with someone who can help him out, like an Eldegoss or, Crustal, Slowbro, Snorlax, someone who can help support this Pokemon in lane. And it just destroys neutral camps. It keeps enemies away from you with his abilities. I really loved playing as Kramer Ant. Right now, I feel like Kramer Ant's S tier, but I'm probably not being fair with that. But I really, really love playing Kramer Ant. Let me talk about this next Pokemon. I can't remember. Gardevoir, it's not a speedster, right? It's an all-rounder. Oh, I said Gardevoir. I meant Garchomp. Garchomp is interesting. So, once you figure out what Garchomp is doing, I think Garchomp is probably an A-tier Pokemon. A good all-around Pokemon, good at clearing the jungle, good at jumping in for fights. When you don't know what Garchomp is doing, Garchomp is going to smash newer players and public games, solo queuing. I think Garchomp is going to corrupt. When you first are playing against Garchomp, you're going to think it's invincible. You're not. It's good. Every time I would fight Garchomp, I would think, how do I kill this what do I do here? What do I even do against this Pokemon? And then you play against it more, and you kind of understand when Garchomp is like turned on and difficult to beat, and when Garchomp is a lot easier to beat. So I think it's going to start S tier. I think it's just going to wreck lobbies when it starts. So I'm going to leave it at S right now. But literally in a week's time, people could figure out Garchomp, and then you think like, oh yeah, Garchomp, he's A or B, he's good, but you know how to deal with him. I think at first, people are not going to know how to deal with Garchomp, and Garchomp is just going to destroy. Let's talk about Cinderace. So Cinderace, okay. I think Cinderace is really, really good, but I also didn't spend enough time with Cinderace. I think I only played one, maybe two, but I think one match with Cinderace. I felt like Cinderace was really strong and was sort of felt like the AD carry kind of Pokemon inside here. That's just a reference to how you might talk about someone in League of Legends. I feel like the way everyone likes this Pokemon and how well it's done, it's probably an A-tier Pokemon. For me, I didn't spend enough time with it. I'm going to put it in A-tier because I know a lot of people have a lot of love for it. I would like to spend more time with Cinderace and really see what I think about it once the game comes out. I'm not sure. Let me talk about someone I loved. I loved Greninja. I'm going to put Greninja as S tier. I don't think in the grand scheme of tournament ranked highest play, I loved Greninja. I just love water Pokemon in general, and I love playing as Greninja, but I felt like a beast when I was playing as Greninja. I felt like a great attacker, incredible range. It also has this cool melee attack when you're near it, so there's a lot of strategy of how you engage with Greninja and when you get in there. It probably isn't S tier. I'm probably being too nice because I like it. It's probably more like A tier. Like Kramer Ant and Greninja, I bet are more A tier. But for me, I had so much fun with Greninja, and I thought it was so good. We'll have to see how things shake out, but for now, I'm going to say Greninja is S tier. And that's mainly just because I had so much fun with Greninja, and I thought it was easy to stay alive, too. It had escapes, you know. It had ways to get out of battle and then ways to engage. So I really, really liked Greninja, and I felt like it was fun playing what felt like more of an assassin-y type character, but also at a range. I thought it was very cool. Lucario. I think Lucario is probably A tier. Really good Pokemon. Well, let's talk about Machamp and Lucario together. So the thing about Machamp is Machamp can become kind of unkillable, but I felt like Machamp was pretty one note when I was playing it. I wasn't blown away by anything Machamp was doing. It wasn't bad. I didn't think it was great. I just thought it was fine. Lucario, I thought, was better. I had a better time playing as Lucario, although I will say I didn't love Lucario's ult. I thought Lucario's ult was a little bit weaker than I would expect. You know, some people's ults power them up and really change the battle, and I thought Lucario's ult, while good, just throwing that big, ball of energy at people, it didn't blow me away. That's why I'd kind of put Lucario as A tier. A lot of Lucario's moves I thought were really, really good, and its mobility felt pretty strong. Machamp, on the other hand, I don't know. I just felt like B tier for me are Pokemon that I think are just solid, but never fully impressed me. That's kind of what I think about the B tier Pokemon. So let's go through it again. I want to spend more time with the C tier, but Gengar felt a little underwhelming. Mr. Mime, I need to spend more time with, but I felt pretty underwhelmed by Mr. Mime as well. And Venusaur, I just think it felt like early, like Venusaur needs a buff. It was just not strong enough. It needed to be a little stronger. I felt like, why is Pikachu so strong and Venusaur so okay? And then B tier, Charizard, Snorlax, Slowbro, and Machamp. All good Pokemon. Again, if you're great with them, you're going to rock people. They're solid picks, so I'd never be upset if I saw a pick like that on my team. I'd be a little concerned if I saw someone, like, if I had a team with Gengar and Venusaur on it, I'd go, ooh, I hope they know how to play those roles. These characters, I think, pick up and play. A lot of people will at least do well with them. A tier, Alolan Ninetales, Eldegoss, Crustal, Wigglytuff, Cinderace, and Lucario. All good Pokemon, all different roles in here. The only reason, look, any of these can shift very fast, but the only reason I don't take some of them to S tier is I just felt like there was a little something missing. Like with Crustal was a beast, but then at times I think, well, it's not the perfect defender in that sense, because as a defender, you're not supposed to be trying to kill everybody. It feels like you're controlling the battlefield more. I don't know. Eldegoss can become an unkillable support god, the unsung hero that walks your team through the finish line, and then at times you think, I can't really do anything without someone around me. So that's kind of where I felt with A tier. Really, really good, but there was just something missing. And then S tier, as you can see, we have a couple speedsters here. I think speedsters are going to be huge. Pikachu and Kramer Ant were both like those really strong zoning mages. Pikachu kind of felt like doing more direct damage. I think Garchomp is not S tier forever at all, but I think he's going to destroy when you first start playing. Destroy. Absolutely. Greninja and Kramer Ant just have my heart. That's where I put them. So there you go. I'm going to make more tier lists, and I'm also going to make them more specific. So as I play more, I'll make tier lists for, people who solo. So people who play alone, what's a great Pokemon to bring into most matches? And, team compositions. What's a great Pokemon to play when you and your allies really know what you're doing? And then once we have an idea of how items fully affect this game, this list could be completely different. Again, if you like a Pokemon, play it. If you want to play Venusaur, play it. You want to play Gengar, play it. If you become the best Gengar player out there, first off, I don't think a lot of people are going to play this Pokemon or know how to defend against it, which is really cool. But if you become the best Gengar player out there, it doesn't matter that someone goes, oh, Gengar's not in the top tier. Doesn't matter. None of us are going to be playing Pokemon Unite professionally. So if you get really good with Gengar, it's not going to matter that I think Gengar is in a lower tier or something like that. And that's true of any of the Pokemon on this list. If you get really good with them, it doesn't matter that Charizard, in my opinion, is B tier. Because you could crush every S tier player out there as long as you figure out how to play that Pokemon best. I hope this tier list helped. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'm fully open to people disagreeing with me. I have no problem with it. But of course, I want people to be able to talk, so just be nice to each other about it. But you could say, Jake, you're so off on, Garchomp. He's nowhere near S tier. Kramer Ant's one of the worst Pokemon. But there we go. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for listening. The game comes out very soon, and I will see you on the battlefield, dunking on you with my Venusaur. All right. Goodbye, everybody. Mwah.